I would like to welcome you to our show today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tapelo Lititi. We are talking the question of evangelism, outreach, reaching out, sharing the good news, particularly wants to focus primarily on the question of post-Christian African mindset. The pastor that we have, who is our guest, or my guest today, that is Pastor Paul Charles, a very well-known speaker, man of God. He has been preaching the gospel of God at least for the past 35 years, if not more. He has been traveling around the world, sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. And he is the author of a book entitled Revolutionary Preaching in a Secular World. Welcome to the show today, Pastor.
Thank you, Tapelo. It's my privilege to be here, and I'm very excited to be here, especially to discuss this topic today.
Likewise. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor. Let me start with maybe a simple question first to say, in this day and age, we have been trying to go out and evangelizing, sharing the good news, sharing the gospel. It would seem that people are less receptive of this message in this day and age. Why is it so difficult today to preach that old-fashioned gospel of Jesus Christ?
I think, Tapelo, the way you phrased your question, from the question itself, we can find the answer to the question. Firstly, the gospel is the good news of what Jesus has done for us by dying for us for our sins and saving us. That is the good news. And it's an accomplished fact. Yes. And it's not an old gospel. It is a very new, very relevant gospel. And many times when the question is, why are people not responding to the gospel? We try to find an answer where we point and pinpoint the problem upon the people. But from my research, from my experience, from my travel, I discovered that is not the right place to point our finger at. Actually, if the people are not receptive of the gospel, maybe the problem is more with us than with the people. Maybe we are not presenting the gospel in a way that makes it easy to be received by the people. So I think the question is not so much why the people are not receptive. The more pertinent question for me is, why are we hesitant to reframe this good news in a way that makes it receptive for the people? So right at the outset, I just want to say that for me, the emphasis in terms of understanding why the gospel is not being received, the emphasis and the answer lies with us and less with the people. Of course, the people too. Correct. But I think the starting point should be with us, because this is a very humbling point. It makes us realize that, hey, we need to learn, we need to grow, and we need to find new ways to present the gospel.
100%. You have been traveling, Pastor, around the world, and you're talking about this issue of looking at us. You have seen how different parts of the world do outreach, share the gospel with others. You have been to India, you have been to the US, where you have been experiencing, or at least being part of how the people actually share this gospel of the world. How has the thinking in different parts of the world influenced how they do it? What are some of the examples, good examples perhaps, that you can give of how people have done this well with the right mindset? This question is quite an interesting question. Because when you study missiology, the foundation of missiology is a contextual, cultural understanding of the place where you are sharing the gospel. And for a long time, we were under the impression that we need to contextualize the gospel for a particular area. For example, in India,
The gospel needs to be contextualized for India. I'm not disputing that. For Africa, the gospel needs to be contextualized for Africa. And we've capitalized and emphasized so much on the idea that the gospel must be contextualized. And yet, the recent global pandemic showed us that we are actually living in a global world now. The world has become so small and yet at the same time remained so vast and so big. So while we talk about reaching people in India, I just came from India, I think 3 weeks ago, and I preached in New Delhi, I preached in Calcutta, I preached in Bangalore, I preached in West Bengal. I've traveled most places in India in these 3 weeks preaching the gospel. And I can tell you that the mindset of the people in India is similar to the mindset of the people in Africa. And before I could go to India, I was in America preaching in Atlanta and in California. And I realized that there is a pattern in the way people are thinking globally. So yes, I am a South African from South Africa, but I realize that even though we like to pride ourselves, we as Africans think a particular way, or we as Indians think a particular way, we need to accept the fact that there is a particular way of thinking that has actually influenced all of us, regardless of where we are. So in my mind, in terms of spreading the gospel, in terms of reaching people with the good news, I am more inclined to think that we need to understand how people think rather than where they are from. Because if we focus too much on where they are from, we might miss the point. Because we have people right here in South Africa who are thinking like Americans in California, or thinking like Indians in New Delhi. So it is more trying to reach people at the level of their thinking that has an impact on how they receive the gospel. And yes, you are right, in all these different places, while people think differently, they also think they have a common way of thinking. Now, let me just say something that there is, from the research that I did, I read a wonderful book by Adam Grant. It's a business book called Think Again. In this book, he outlines 4 ways of thinking. And since you brought the question up about thinking, I thought it's a good time for me to explain this. Firstly, he says that the first mode of thinking is a preacher mode. And I think that is where the church is at the moment. We talk about preaching the gospel. The preacher mode is where we are convinced that we are right. And we want to persuade others to accept our way of thinking. And if you really examine that, I can actually admit to this. As a preacher for the past 35 years, I've been preaching since the age of 15. And I can tell you, since that time, every time I stood on the pulpit, I was convinced that what I was preaching was the truth. And I wanted to persuade others to accept the way that I think. That is a preacher mode. That is the preacher mode of thinking. Then there is the other mode of thinking, which is a prosecutor mode. The prosecutor mode of thinking is where we actually want to prove others are wrong. And if you study evangelistic series and outreach meetings of the church, you will discover we are inclined to prove others are wrong. I don't know why we are so obsessed with proving other people wrong. Because the greatest testament to the truth is the speaking of the truth. Truth on its own is a defense. So if we spend the time trying to prove others are wrong, it actually must realize that the more we try to put others down, we actually want to show that we are superior. So we have a problem with the way that we think. So the preacher mode that we have is kind of a superior mentality. The prosecutor mode is also a superior mentality. Then we have a politician mode of thinking. The politician mode of thinking is where we try to get the approval of everyone. And therefore, we don't want to even talk about the hard truths of the Bible. I mean, talk about today. We have hard truths we need to face.
Correct.
Because there are issues of homosexuality, there are issues of same-sex marriage, the foundations of family is being destroyed. And if we want to be political about the whole thing, we don't want to offend anybody, we will refrain from speaking the truth. So that is why you have a watered down preaching of the truth. And this political or politician mode of thinking is where we want to win the approval of others and our audience. And so we find ourselves posturing ourselves all the time, not actually rethinking. You will find church leaders nowadays, previously back in the day, when church leaders visit a country, their interest was to preach the gospel. But now we make it a point to speak about the political issues of the day. Why? We want to show that we are current. We want to show that we are in tune with what's happening. This politician mindset has caused us to be shy about preaching the real truth of the gospel. And then there is the scientist mode, Tapelo. This scientist mode is what excites me the most. Because when you think like a scientist, Adam Grant says in his book, Think Again, when you think like a scientist, you favor humility over pride. So you are not here to prove others are wrong. You favor curiosity over conviction. So you are interested in discovering more of the truth. In fact, if you have a scientist mind, you are looking for reasons why you might be wrong, not just to prove why others are wrong. So with a scientist mindset, you don't have to be right all the time. You are willing to listen to others. So we need to examine the way we think and the way we present the gospel to the world today. I would suggest, I highly recommend that we give up the preacher mode of thinking, we give up the prosecutor mode of thinking, we give up the politician mode of thinking, but we adopt the scientist mode of thinking where we love the truth, and our pursuit of knowledge and the truth must keep us searching for the truth and studying the Bible. So yes, we have people thinking in similar patterns throughout the world, and we need to examine the way we think, our modes of thinking, if we are really going to reach them.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much, Pastor. You spoke very much in detail that we need to take up the science mode or the science approach, the science thinking. And I'm just wondering, as one in the audience, to say, practically, what does that mean for us? What does it mean we should actually do? And I'm thinking here also in the context of our generation, the Gen Z generation, that these days is difficult to get close to. Perhaps because we are speaking past them rather than to them and so on. But practically, can you give us some of the practical activities and examples of how we actually go out and reach people today?
Tapelo, you mentioned the Gen Z, this generation.
Yes.
Okay, this is a group of people that were born around 1995. We need to understand how this group of people think.
Yeah.
This group of people, Gen Z, my children are classified in this Gen Z
100%.
category. So when I speak about this, forgive me for being a little bit passionate about it, but I know the struggle of reaching the mind of a Gen Z.
Yeah.
We need to realize that this particular generation, that is the current generation, they have an entrepreneurial mindset. They are very individualistic. They are geared towards change so fast. That is why you'll find them, if they are in university, they don't mind changing their majors or their complete degrees altogether. They are used to change. They are used to having an entrepreneurial mindset. They are used to being individualistic. They are also used to having what I like to call a consumer mindset. If they embrace an idea and it doesn't make sense to them or is irrelevant, they have no problem throwing it out. So if we truly believe and we are convicted that what we are sharing with this generation is the truth, we must make sure that there's nothing in it that's going to make them want to throw it out, because that's how they are operating today. And we need to realize how they think in order for us to reach them. Now, this Gen Z that we are talking about, I don't like to really categorize them as Gen Z, because we have people who have been living, people from the millennial category who are living in this same era. We have people who are the busters or boomers who are still living in this area, like myself. So we are living in the midst of this climate, this way of thinking today. And having said that, we need to realize how they think. What is the thing that matters to them? Because sometimes what we are preaching is not what they are interested in. I mean, think about it. What are they really interested in? They are interested in civil rights. They are interested in human rights. They are interested in social justice. They are interested in eradicating poverty. They are interested in politics. They are interested in how to preserve the environment, climate change, and all of that. And if we are shy or not equipped to talk about these issues from a biblical position, then we are actually excluding them. And the persons to blame for that exclusion is not them. It's our inadequacy. It's our unwillingness to learn, to adopt this scientist mindset. If we get rid, or not totally get rid, but if we subject the preacher mindset or the prosecutor mindset, if we subject it to a scientist mindset, then we don't want to prove them wrong. We want to engage them. We want to be in a discussion with them to lead them to what is true. So in this scenario, what interests me is that Christianity then is not presented the way it was presented before. Christianity now is presented as an alternate way of thinking, as an alternate belief. And when you give an alternate way of thinking, you are actually showing respect for the individuality of the person, which speaks directly to the core of who they are. Now, usually when we talk about sharing the gospel, we don't talk about, let's give them an alternative, as though Christ is one of the many options. But that is the reality. Christ is one of the many options. We don't like to say that, because we like to preach Jesus is the only way. The Bible even says, no one comes to the Father except by me, Jesus says in the Bible. So we want to emphasize that. But that kind of emphasis should come at a later stage in a developed relationship, rather than at the beginning, because the language that we use will either push them away or bring them towards us. That's what I think. That's what I really think. You know, in the Garden of Eden, God pushed the Adam and Eve, the human beings, out of the garden. Today, the reverse has taken place. We have pushed God out of our lives. So this is a sad and a true reality of the world that we live in. The first fall, yes, there was the expulsion of human beings from the garden. The second fall is where we have moved God out of our discussions, out of the equation. And that is our real challenge. How are we going to talk to them about God when they have ruled God out? That, I think, is a very important point for us to discuss.
Great. No, thank you very much, Pastor. I think you have touched on a very important concept there of approaching people using what matters to them the most, what they are interested in. And it reminds me of one preacher this past weekend who was talking on John chapter 4, saying the woman at the well, the one thing she did not want at that well was to keep coming to the well, because many of the other women would come and confront her. That's why she went during the daylight. So anything that would help her not to be able to come more often was useful. And when Jesus said to her, I will give you water that will help you never to thirst again, that caught her interest. And I'm really glad that you also brought in the same concept here, Pastor, to say, let's look at what these young people, our youth, already are interested in and approach them through that point.
You see, previously it was very easy to preach the gospel. I mean, let's get serious, right?
Yes.
It was very easy to preach the gospel before. I remember preaching and hundreds of people standing up to give their hearts to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Why? Because we were preaching to a group of people that already had some inclination towards Christianity.
Yes.
And today we are asking the question, why are we not getting the same kind of response?
Yeah.
Then we'll quote Acts chapter 2. You know, when the apostle preached over there, I don't know, 3,000 or something, over 3,000 people gave their hearts to Jesus and was baptized. It is because the apostle at that time was speaking to a people. Remember, his audience was Jewish.
Yes.
They were already expecting the Messiah. This audience already understood that God is the creator of all that is. This audience already had an inclination that the Messiah would come. So they were already primed to accept the gospel that was preached.
Yeah.
All that the apostle did over there was, he told him, listen, you know the thing that you was waiting for, the person you've been waiting for was with us all the time. His name was Jesus. But what you did? Instead, you crucified him. And the people were convicted and they gave their hearts to God. And that is how we have over 3,000 people getting baptized.
Yeah.
But today, this Gen Z mindset has cleared the slate out. They've erased God out of the equation. The slate is clean now. When the apostle was preaching in Acts chapter 2, the slate already had some checkpoints, which he touched on. But now there is nothing that we have to check on. There's nothing that we can affirm. There's nothing that we can refer to. So the slate is clean. In one way, it is actually an opportunity for us.
Yeah.
There's two examples in the Bible. In Acts chapter 2, we have where this conversion of 3,000 people.
Yes, yes.
And then we have Acts chapter 17. In Acts chapter 17, we find that the apostle, when he is preaching to a different kind of audience, not the audience of Acts chapter 2.
Yeah.
This audience, for them, they believe that God exists, but we have no idea who he is. So the Greeks had their gods, the Romans had their gods, the Jews had their gods. And there was erected one idol or stone, there's an altar to the unknown God.
Yes.
The apostle used that, and from that point, he preached the gospel, and that's how a conversion was reached. Today, if we really want to reach people today, we can't adopt the mindset of Acts chapter 2. Because we are not speaking to a Christian audience.
Yes, yes.
It's very easy to get people to change one way of thinking if they are already Christians. For example, Seventh-day Adventists would speak about the Sabbath. Okay? We're speaking to Christians already. They've accepted Jesus as their personal savior.
Yeah.
They've already accepted the Bible as the infallible word of God. They've accepted the second coming of Christ. And it's easy to prove from the Bible that Sabbath is Saturday instead of Sunday.
Yes.
But when you are talking to a Gen Z mindset, the slate is clean. They have rejected the Bible, they have rejected God, or placed him out of the equation. So we have to look for a common ground with them, like what the apostle did. He looked around, and while looking around, he had nothing to say until he found that inscription that says, "To the unknown God." And from that point, he began to speak to them. And that's how we need to approach the mindset today. We need to see how we can identify with the way of thinking today, and from that point, preach the gospel. Instead of going with a canned gospel and imposing it on them. Because that would be the preacher mindset.
Yeah,
That says, I have the truth, you listen to me. Or if you want, you go to prosecutor mindset and you say, no, let me show you what you are doing that is wrong. In their eyes, they are doing what is right for them. So that is the struggle that we have. But it's also a great opportunity for us. Because it causes us to get into their world, understand their world, and from that point, speak about the gospel. Because the gospel is good news, and it's good news for everyone.
Good. At this point, I want to invite Clinton. I want to bring you in, maybe to chip in on what the pastor has said. Clinton?
Hello. Listening to the pastor made my mind really think of what he was saying. And it is so true.
Yeah.
Looking at Christianity, I think Christianity as the Gen Z, when they look at it, they look at Christianity as an institution. And I think Christianity, maybe Pastor, you can also give some light on this, that Christianity should be a way of life. And when Christianity is a way of life, it means the acceptance, of being a Christian is more acceptable. Because when you look at an institution, an institution, they may look at it as, church, they may even see it as a prison, too many rules, too many laws, too many governing people and bodies. So I think Christianity should be a way of life. Because if I'm engaged with people in the street, and I meet people, and I'm able they are able to see me and they know me, I must be free to engage them and tell them about life, about how Christ has changed my life. So I think Christianity should become a way of life, bringing a different perspective of how we should go out and approach people, talk to people, and show them that being a Christian is something that we should live with from day to day. I love the fact that Jesus Christ, he had compassion on people. And when you have compassion on people, it means you meet them at their needs. You meet them where they are. And we should meet people everywhere we go. There should be no roadblocks, nothing stopping us from just meeting someone, smiling with them, and telling them about your life, telling them how you feel about the day. And I think maybe, we can elaborate more on what I've just said.
I think, sorry, Tapelo, Clinton, I think you mentioned a very vital point in that because people view the church as an institution, the church has a lot of barriers that prevents people from coming into the church. And the Gen Z especially, this generation, have accused the church of being more obsessed with money and power. And that is a real question that they have in their minds. And if we are honest, if we are gut level honest, we are interested in money. We are interested in power. And the people out there today, this Gen Z, who are thinking people, they are asking the question, listen, if you as a church is so interested in money and in power, they don't want to have anything to do with us. Then there is the other barriers that is preventing people from coming to us. They say that the church has become too political, or the church has too much rules that is preventing them from coming. So we need, on this end, we need to ask, what are the barriers that we are placing in front of them that is making it difficult for them to cross over? And this requires a huge dose of humility and introspection. And we don't like to say that the church is obsessed with money and power and politics and rules. We don't like to say that. But if that is because we are more interested in self-preservation, we are so defensive about it. Let's get real. If our interest is to reach the people who are there, we need to remove those barriers. And until we admit that these are some barriers that we have created, we'll never see the need to remove them. But while I mention these barriers, there are other more foundational barriers. Okay? And that is, the church is living now, if you study the church and in the different countries, etc., and the influence that the world has in the church is living in a very compromised position. And compromise has actually become a barrier for people coming into the church. Now, we might smile at this and say, but aren't we supposed to adjust to the world? Let me tell you, compromise, copying the world, if we copy the world in the church, we are not giving them an alternative. Because then we look like the world. So what's the point of wanting what we have if we're trying our best to look like them? Then there is the other idea, the other barrier that we have created, what I call a cloistered barrier. Here is where we say, the world is too worldly, so let us isolate ourselves. So our language in the church is, we are brothers and sisters here, we are elders and pastors, and these are heathens, these are sinners, these are that guy, that girl who is out there, and we have our own way, our own lingo over here, our own language, and we've actually isolated ourselves. We have gatherings just for ourselves. Our worship service, my gosh, I tell you, if I had an opportunity to change one thing in our church, I would change the worship pattern that we have. Our worship service is not geared to make the people of the world comfortable and inviting to worship God. Our worship is designed for seasoned Christians. And how are people who don't even understand what is the gospel be able to engage with us? So an isolation mindset is not a good way. A combative mindset is also not a good way. Now here's a combative mindset. A combative mindset is saying that, there is the world and there is the church. We need to convert the world. So here we have this combat that we have with the church, with the world. It's like a holy war that is going on. These are barriers. If we have this attitude of a combative barrier mindset, or we have a cloistered isolation mindset, if we have a compromise mindset, these are all barriers. Then we also have, before I tell you what else we have, I believe we need to have a countercultural mindset. A countercultural mindset is actually, let's show the world what it really means to be a Christian.
Can I also
There's less love in the world. I think Clinton mentioned that.
Yes.
Clinton, you mentioned that. Okay, if we were living like Christians, that is countercultural.
Clinton?
Can I ask another question? Don't you think at times that we are too confined to our churches, in the sense of, that building becomes our place, our haven, and it is a place where, as you mentioned, seasoned Christians, but we find ourselves lacking being outside of that building where we should be more. And how else are we going to engage with people? We're expecting people to walk through doors. But no, God has taught us that we should go out and mingle with the people. And that is what is needed more, because as a Christian, if I am loving everyone, I should not be institutionalized. I should be free, I should be out there engaging. When Christ was out there, even the woman that had an issue of blood for 12 years, when everyone was, giving space for her, didn't want to go near her, she touched the hem of Jesus' garment. Jesus did not run from her. He turned and embraced her. And we are not embracing those that are looking for us.
I like that. I like that very much, Clinton. I mean, I'm reminded of a great writer that I like very much, who says, Christ's method and Christ's method alone will give us results in outreach.
So actually the church, Tapelo.
Yes.
The church then, Tapelo, is supposed to be a place where when people who are not Christians enter into the church, they must be very comfortable.
Feel at home, yes.
And if we as Christians, we have an unwritten code of dress, of speech, of all of this. And when people are not dressed the way we prescribe they should be dressed for church, we frown on them. So when they enter our churches, they sit right at the back, isolate themselves. Why? Because they're not comfortable with us. And I like the idea that we've heard it so many times. The church should not be a museum for the saints, but it should be a hospital for sinners. And Tapelo, when you say Christ's method alone, I think you hit the nail on the head, reaching people at their point of need.
Of need, exactly. And it goes further. In fact, Pastor, you are right there. And mingle with them as one who desires their good. Then you gain their confidence because you are now part of them. You come closer to them. You don't look down on them. And then it says, then you can easily say, come follow Jesus that I have embraced. Maybe then to wrap up, let me invite each one of you maybe to then bring in closing remarks. Let me start with you, Clinton, and then I'll bring in the pastor as the last speaker.
Yes, thank you, Tabela. I read a quote in this week where it says, everyone has experienced something in their life. And you don't know what it is, but they're experiencing something. And that something could be, causing them to be depressed, to want to commit suicide.
Yeah.
They have anxieties and stuff. You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But only if you can show them a loving heart, have compassion, just be a friend, can make a difference to their lives. So because we don't know what people are experiencing, it is always incumbent upon us to have a loving heart and always to be drawing people towards us, so they may know that Christianity is a way of life and it is not something that's institutionalized.
Yeah. And it's a good way of life at that. Yeah. Pastor?
The world in which we live in today is a very sexually diverse world.
Yeah.
The idea about sex and sexuality is flooding the mind and the channels of today. Yeah. And if we as Christians shy away from the dialogue, we are going to appear irrelevant, or we don't have an informed opinion to make. We need to engage society where society is engaged at the moment. Yeah. We must not be afraid to do that. Yeah. That's the first thing I want to say. I also want to say that we do have things to say. I mean, instead of just making it appear as if we are shy or we don't know what we believe, let us speak with conviction what we believe. Yes. Because the Bible does have something to say about same-sex marriage. Yes. The Bible does have something to say about homosexuality. The Bible does have something to say about race. The Bible does have something to say about poverty, alleviation, and all of this. But the way in which we engage society with a biblical view will show how relevant we are.
Yes.
I also want to say that today we are living at a time where there is what we call snackable content. We are not used to presenting snackable content. We like to present long discourses. I mean, look at even YouTube changed from just YouTube videos to YouTube shorts. Even Facebook changed from just Facebook videos to Facebook Reels. Yes. Why? Because the Gen Z mindset is chewing on snackable, bite-sized content. Yes. Now, we are not comfortable with that. You know why? Because we like to see people converted immediately. We won't admit it, but that's the truth. Yep. I mean, you think about it, we go into an area to preach the gospel, we'll have a series of 21 days, which, by the way, I think is very long, my own opinion, right? Or we have 14 days or 7 days. And after that 7 days, of the 100 people that came, as an example, 10 people choose to be baptized. You know what we do? We close up and we go. Why? Because we got what we want. Now we're moving on to the next area. So we are very event-driven. But if we were process-driven, if we really want to influence this generation, we need to change our mindset from being event-driven to process-driven. You know why we don't like process? Because process is dirty sometimes. Process is time-consuming. You don't see results immediately. So we can't give reports to our churches. We can't give reports to our donors, to the tithe payers or those who return tithe. We can't give reports to them. But we need to be committed to the process. And when we live out this kind of life with conviction, then we will have a certain magnetism in us, which will be drawing people to us because we have the real thing now. And they want the real thing. So we need to be creating, our messages need to be, yes, more informative. Our messages need to be more engaging. And we need to speak in plain language. I mean, remember I said the Gen Z generation, the slate is clean.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just go and tell them, oh, John 3 verse 16 says this. They have no idea who's John in the first place. We need to explain from the beginning. John, one of the first 4 books of the Bible. The Bible is made up of 66 books. We have so many books in the Old Testament, 27 books, right? In the New Testament, the first 4 books of the New Testament is Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. These are people who walked with Jesus, were his disciples. And one of the disciples of Jesus was John. And in the book that John wrote, chapter 3, verse 16. This is what he wrote, which encapsulates the gospel. For God so loved the world. So we need to reframe what we speak, knowing that our audience is not biblically literate anymore.
Yes.
So we need to take time to explain these things from the beginning. And when we take that time, you'll discover that the process is long, but the rewards are much, much greater.
Yeah.
You know, Tapelo and
yes,
Clinton,
yes.
I want to just ask you to do this, okay?
Yes, Muruti.
I want you to, with your right leg, turn your right leg clockwise.
Right leg
okay,
clockwise.
do it. Okay, turn your leg clockwise, and at the same time, while you're turning your legs clockwise, okay, I want you to write the number 6 with your hand.
Okay.
With your right hand. It's practically impossible, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Confusing.
practically
Change one or the
impossible.
other
Yes.
one.
Confusing.
Okay, and that is what we are doing with presenting the gospel. It doesn't work. An orthopedic surgeon showed me this, by the way, when I went for my back problem that I had to the hospital, and just to make me laugh and to show me that we don't know everything. But if the thing does not work, let's find out the way that works. We talk about spreading the gospel.
Yes.
I mean, we've had tent meetings before. If it's not working, why do we keep doing the same thing? It's like we are insane. We are insane trying to do the same thing while hoping to get a different result. You know, they always say the sign of insanity is what? To do the same thing, hoping to have a different result. When we keep doing this, then the Gen Z looking at Christians, these are crackpots here. These are mental cases. They're doing something that doesn't work. My appeal to myself and to everyone, let's find ways that work. Let's have a scientist mindset, a curious mindset.
Yes.
And with this mindset, I can tell you, we will always lead people to the truth. So there is an ideological bridge that may have been destroyed in this Gen Z because we have adopted different ways of thinking. Yes, but there is a relational bridge that is always open for us. And if we want to really cross into the world of the Gen Z in order to win them to the good news and share with them the good news of Jesus Christ, we need to create that relational bridge. And it is through that bridge we can cross over, or cause them to cross over. But we must be willing to go to where they are and they come to us. You know, the world has changed so much, Tapelo.
Yes, Pastor.
There was a time when the world was possessed by pluralization. This simply means that every belief is considered valid and is tolerated in the marketplace. That is pluralism.
Yes.
And then there is secularism, where they took God out of the equation. When you take spiritual and religious distinctives out of society, you are actually creating a secular society. And then we have a relegation of religious convictions to the home. And said, don't talk about your religious convictions in public.
Yes.
Let's only talk about it at home.
Yeah.
So the spiritual experience has become a very private affair. So for Gen Z, the generation today who are very private, we want to publicly proclaim the gospel to them. We need to find ways where we can enter into their private space through good relations,
Yes.
entering into dialogue and discussions that on topics that interest them so that we can reach them. So yes, we need to go to where they are, understand the way they think, adjust the way that we think, and then humble ourselves and go to them with the pure gospel. This is what I think we need to do. We need to really consider the way we think and make the changes that we need to make for ourselves.
Absolutely.
First.
Thank you very much, Pastor. The mindset, I think the focus of your message really today has been, let us change our mindset. The mindset is very critical to achievement of our results. Thank you very much, Pastor Paul Charles. Thank you very much, Ndate Clinton and Muruti Paul Charles. As I said, we have learned quite a lot. I have learned quite a lot.
Yeah,
and there's still
well.
indeed a lot it would seem that we may indeed discuss in the future. But as of today, I think we have covered a lot of ground, very useful. And you, the audience, thank you very much for being part of this. And we hope you have actually gathered and learned something. As you can see, there are many things that we may need to still learn from the pastor, from Clinton, and from many others. And therefore, it means we may need to continue with this series and bring them again for another time. Until that time, until we meet that time, may the good Lord bless you. I'm Tapelo Letiti saying, have a good day. Bye-bye.